Here's a question. If this were an original property, how would this look to you? Honest answers only. My non-confrontational way to ask if this looks good or familiar. Wouldn't this look a bit off if it weren't adapting material justifying this little Viking boy skitter haircut or every other costume or makeup decision that might seem unusual in terms of Viking representation? I couldn't care less about realism. Something doesn't need to look realistic to look authentic, but there is this common symptom of looking artificial within live-action adaptations from cosplaying as the animated movies they adapt. Something I gaslit myself pretty deep into believing that the How to Train Your Dragon remake wouldn't suffer from as much due to the original film's director being at the helm. The embarrassing places coping in denial will get you. This kinda looks like a stage play, doesn't it? Derogative, I'm afraid. It's more than just Hiccup already looking like a full-grown actor with a singing career instead of a malnourished Viking child, or the environment somehow having less atmosphere than the cartoon movie. It has to be this obsession to submit to the source material's visual identity despite the look in question having been made for animation and consequently less likely to work elsewhere if left unrevised. I feel that the thing about aesthetic authenticity is that it has something to say for itself, showcasing both novelty and cohesion between all the elements constituting the art direction. Some live-action adaptations could do that. Most of them don't, looking uncanny, unnatural, artificial by consequence, purposely reminding you of the reference, like cosplay. No shade to you crafty peeps. I just think that the differing intentions between film and cosplay should be more visible. It being a matter of time before all of our favorite animated movies getting a live action would be an easier pill to swallow if studios showed more of an understanding that shot-for-shot recreations were never that much of a flex. Ignoring the dissonance between Dean expressing not wanting to do a play-by-play of his original film and the first piece of official marketing material selling mimicry after mimicry, I'm really starting to miss better distinguishing fan-made trailers from the real thing, harder nowadays due to people now having access to tools to better compete, excluding AI as it will never be valid. Then it's this overly polished, unworn, artificial look of recent films plaguing the industry, blurring the line once better defined by this discernible amount of aesthetic bravery. This confidence in daring to be visually unexpected and inspired gave a remake or reboot some visual legitimacy. Shout out to those visionary directors with a reputation to maintain bringing all that to the table. Tim was given Alice in Wonderland and marked it all over. A Tim Burton film through and without a single frame wasted not reminding you of the man behind the vision, whether it's through the German expressionism, the crooked silhouette given to nearly every prop, the cartoonishly distorted trees, the stripe motif applied to the wardrobe, Johnny Depp. It's 90% Burton and 10% Alice, but I'll take that over dragging a pre-established aesthetic across mediums with nothing else to offer other than more real this time. I'll die worshipping this shot for its idiosyncrasy. AI could never. It's Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland and no one else's. Not much about this shot tells me that it wouldn't have been there regardless of the director at the helm. Pretending for a moment that the trailer wasn't released on all the official pages and by Dean himself, what about this shot couldn't have been done by AI? I know it wasn't, but sure, let's take the iconic shot everyone recognizes from the original film and change almost nothing about it aside from replacing Hiccup's CG model with Mason Thames in a Viking costume from Party City. I also wish I could ignore the plants looking like plastic so evenly spread across the frame, or the foam-licking rocks, but I can't help but mourn the missed opportunity to use some artistic freedom to double down on this location supposedly being Toothless's death pit, but I guess it'd be too hard to sell the theme park extension out of this one if it felt as convincingly treacherous as it probably could have been. Maybe Peter Jackson's natural sets destroyed my standards with King Kong probably having the best looking natural environments ever put to film. Operatic, surreal, yet believable with nearly every rock looking like a safety hazard to try climbing, or every branch, every vine carrying generations, centuries of history. None of it feels like a set despite shot composition being the obvious priority behind the set design, and all for the better, plus the fact that nearly every background has about 3 layers of depth, pulling you into the canvas.
I wanted to make sure that we had atmosphere and we had a feeling of depth. So we'd put the different layers together and we'd put smoke and we'd put falling leaves, because as the vines get disturbed and they fall down, I wanted bits of debris and leaves to flutter and fall to give it a very organic texture. It's very important to be as real as possible.
The man's on point. It's more than enough to make a landscape painter blush. It's got crunch. I'm not asking for the How to Train Your Dragon remake to be filmed in some crevice under Robert Eggers' shooting conditions. I'm just missing the illusion. This looks and feels forcibly designed and built for Mason to perform that scene in that way we all recognize. You can almost imagine the markers on the floor. It's borderline LARPing. It's giving fake biome. You know times are dark when real mountains is all you can find when digging bare hands for positives. On-location shooting was given once, including some care to convey some atmosphere for it not to look like behind-the-scenes footage. The works of Andrew Lesnie and Dariusz Wolski will always have me pine for that filmic era when even god-awful movies like Aragon seem to try to be on par with the competition. Most of it looks like an expensive made-for-TV production, but that third act is totally responsible for my kid self thinking it wasn't as diseased, with several shots almost seeming out of place for how genuinely kinetic they are. Also, live-action dragons peaked in 2005. Don't ask me why. Have I said anything new yet? The pot could use a stir. M. Night's 2010 disaster did one thing better than most remakes, merely using the 2D source material as a conceptual starting point and not direct cosplay reference like everyone else seems to do. Imagine not wanting to live under the source material's shadow, sparing your audience from going through every single minute of running time thinking about the other better thing. Free from the past yet respectful of it, resulting in that precious aesthetic authenticity. Unfortunately, this movie being generally atrocious probably has people interpreting that artistic decision as part of the film's many failings, perhaps half the reason behind my channel still standing. Until some other remake is made with half the aesthetic bravery, I'll keep paying myself a visit to the lake by invoking this movie to make a point. Next time without any care to preface how bad a film I believe it to be. Your film bro vibe check means nothing to me. I'm not about to live this life mourning the artistic value I yearn to see in better films, wasted on ones either forgotten by most or historically bad. How sad is it to only find some parcel of aesthetic independence in behind-the-scenes footage rather than the official teaser? I'm only slightly reassured by the costume variety. You've got Stoic looking like a unit, dripped out like never before, Astrid's looking fine in her own unique way, unfortunately inviting some stinky, unwanted guests into the conversation. It's not as if her design was all that integral to her part in the story to begin with. Her final look could have been an earlier iteration and not much would have changed. This is Pretty Viking Girl who becomes friend. This is also Pretty Viking Girl who becomes friend. I can still get the frustration, just not the racism. At this point it's more than just a matter of opinions and more about the battles one chooses to have. Never mind all that's ripe for genuine criticism. Never mind half of the animated charm being lost in translation, like Toothless sitting on his four paws like a boring animal instead of on his tail as if sitting on a chair, adding a layer of mystique to his behavior, or Stoic not nearly coming off as much as the towering, oppressive, domineering parental figure. I get that it's easier to just have Nico Marlett draw the guy as this square-shaped boulder barely fitting in a room, but it still sucks to see most of that aura gone. Or did you not notice? Never mind that this movie shouldn't even exist. Racism's back in fashion, whatever gets you the clicks. What's even art for? I just want to be entertained, and anything I don't recognize isn't worth my split-second attention span. Nothing tops a remake in reminding you of the bigots with whom you sometimes share film taste. That and perpetuating the nefarious belief that animation isn't legitimate enough as an art form, therefore needing the live-action treatment for validity in the eyes of the larger masses, regardless of the unanimous love for the original film because animation is made for kids, said the man who drinks from the toilet. JPS was right. Not that I needed any validation for where I think the How to Train Your Dragon movie belongs within film canon, but seeing film Twitter taking a stand to put a spotlight on the different seemingly inconsequential animation detail can make further showcasing why this movie's high up there brought comfort into this ever-growing cloud of negativity. It's still not worth Dean swooping in, wasting healthy years of his career to save us from far worse versions of this film. Boss move, but I just have to feel for the guy recalling that interview where he expressed apprehension towards remakes and preferring to see all those resources being in the service of originality, hence me not name-dropping him into my slander. Not to mention suspecting all the sets already having been built long before his intervention, crushing any chance for a director to bring whatever vision to life. Anti-art, which is what most of those recent remakes feel like. I might be dead wrong about this. Maybe it's all as Dean intended it to be, and if so, my bad. Regardless, if he's willing to compromise some of his artistic principles by being involved, I'd rather believe that he at least worked on something that won't keep him up at night, haunted by his contribution to the art hell machine. I'm still rooting for the guy. I could trash this set for pages and pages, but I doubt that it'll bring us closer to the solution to this system-wide problem. The issue's larger than a single director or a single film, which brings me to question my own motivations behind mostly expressing things already said elsewhere. As honest as I've been, I won't lie about wanting to milk the hashtag because I do wish to one day get paid doing this in more than the occasional cool vid bro, even though comments like these are literally the only thing keeping me going. Even if I can't see it yet, I'll still hope for the worth Dean brought into this project maybe be embedded in the connective tissue between the iconic set pieces, maybe the dialogue. Maybe John Powell didn't score that one asleep. Who knows, but maybe remakes looking worse and worse gives people a chance to start craving for better things out there. Surely what'll push for studios to finally get the memo, slowly pulling back on live action adaptations. Every night I pray. Or maybe it'll just be good enough for most of us to watch, tolerate, and consequently support all the things I just spent 8 minutes crying about, further delaying the trend's eventual demise. We're all gonna get to share the responsibility. Exciting stuff. See you at the pre-premiere.